Commerce Alive Today presents
Ruby Tuesday. That original Knoxville location had its beginnings in a Hollywood-like deathbed scene. In 1972, Samuel E. Beall was a 22-year-old University of Tennessee, Knoxville, student majoring in finance, who on the side helped William Colmia manage a group of Pizza Hut restaurants. Colmia suffered a massive heart attack that year. On his deathbed, Colmia, wanting his protege to be his own boss, offered Beall $10,000 to open a restaurant. Beall accepted the offer, and together with 4 of his college buddies scraped together another $10,000 to open the first Ruby Tuesday, which was located near the university campus in Knoxville. Beall named the restaurant after the then ubiquitous Rolling Stones song Ruby Tuesday, which he kept hearing on the jukebox. The restaurant itself, which was a converted old house, featured barnwood walls, fake Tiffany lamps over the tables, and a $1.45 hamburger served on an English muffin. Beall also secured the first liquor-by-drink license in Knoxville, which enhanced the restaurant's popularity with students. Ruby Tuesday's subsequent success made Beall too busy for school, so he dropped out to devote himself full-time to his venture. Over the next several years, Ruby Tuesday grew slowly, adding a new outlet about every 9 months. As the chain expanded, the rustic decor and inexpensive fare proved popular with not only college students but also young couples. By 1982, 10 years after its founding, Ruby Tuesday was a 15-restaurant chain. Nearly all the restaurants were located in regional shopping malls. Beall had also begun to develop a second concept called L&N Seafood Grill. As Ruby Tuesday's rate of growth began to increase in the early 1980s, Beall realized he needed more capital to expand the flagship chain and develop other concepts. He considered taking the company public, entering the franchising game, or selling the company. It was the last option that he eventually took, following a real estate agent/acquaintance's suggestion that Morrison Incorporated might be a likely buyer. Morrison was a cafeteria and contract food service chain founded in 1920 and headquartered in Mobile, Alabama. An ill-conceived diversification in the 1960s into motels, China and small wares, insurance, and other disparate areas led to confusion and reduced profit margins by the late 1970s. Morrison's fortunes were turned around following the appointment of Ernest Eugene Bishop as CEO in 1980. Bishop quickly divested the company of all its non-restaurant and food service businesses, and then, in April 1982, enhanced Morrison's restaurant sector by buying Ruby Tuesday for $15 million in cash and stock. At the time, Ruby Tuesday revenue averaged about $1 million a year per restaurant. Bishop left Beall in control of the day-to-day operations of Ruby Tuesday, making Beall president of the newly created specialty restaurant division of Morrison. Beall soon opened the first L&N Seafood Grill, located in Knoxville, then developed the Silver Spoon Cafe concept, a New York City delicatessen-style restaurant. The first Silver Spoon opened in 1984, also in Knoxville. By 1985 it was clear that the sale of Ruby Tuesday to Morrison had indeed enabled the restaurant chain to markedly increase its growth rate. At fiscal year-end 1985, there were 35 Ruby Tuesdays in business, more than double the number at the time of the sale, along with 7 L&N restaurants. The specialty restaurant division as a whole brought in $70 million in revenue, 11% of Morrison's total. More importantly, the Ruby Tuesday restaurants were improving Morrison's overall profitability since the specialty restaurant division's $7.5 million in profits represented 18% of the parent company's total. The increasing importance of the specialty restaurants to Morrison's future was quite evident when Bishop decided in 1985 that Beall should be his successor. That year Bishop made Beall executive vice president of Morrison's specialty restaurants and cafeteria operations. Since before Ruby Tuesday was sold to Morrison, Beall lived in the resort town of Hilton Head, South Carolina, and commuted to Knoxville, where Ruby Tuesday was still based. In 1986 Bishop asked Beall to relocate to Mobile to become president and COO of Morrison, and Beall agreed, proving his dedication and his desire to succeed Bishop by leaving his beloved Hilton Head. Meanwhile, the specialty restaurants continued to grow at a rapid pace in the late 1980s, nearing the 200-unit mark, with more than 125 Ruby Tuesdays among them. All of this growth was achieved through company-owned units, keeping Morrison in total control of operations, control that would have been impossible if the company had decided to franchise. As Morrison's cafeteria operations suffered from a general category-wide decline, the specialty restaurants became even more important, accounting for half of Morrison's profits by the end of the decade. In the early 1990s, in order to provide more growth opportunities and to guard against the fluctuations of the retail market, the Ruby Tuesday chain was shifted from an emphasis on shopping mall locations to a longer-term 50-50 mix of mall and freestanding locations. In conjunction with this shift came Ruby Tuesday's inclusion in so-called restaurant parks, clusters of dinner houses that share some development and ongoing operational costs and that provide customers a range of restaurant choices in a small area, even the easy ability to switch their restaurant choice if the wait at one restaurant is too long. One of the first restaurant parks featuring a Ruby Tuesday was located in the Denver suburb of Englewood, with the other dinner houses being Chevy's, Grisanti's, and Stanford's. In 1992, Morrison restructured itself, emphasizing restaurants over cafeterias by changing its name to Morrison Restaurants Incorporated. The dinner house restaurants Ruby Tuesday, L&N, and Silver Spoon were positioned within Morrison Restaurants as the casual dining group, later known as the Ruby Tuesday Group. The year 1992 also saw Beall become CEO of Morrison, and Morrison posted its first $1 billion revenue year. In the early 1990s, Beall was beginning to become disenchanted with the L&N seafood concept. Ruby Tuesday's success was largely attributed to its per-person check average of $8.75, and Beall was finding it nearly impossible to get L&N's average even under $10. At the same time, the Silver Spoon concept was not overly successful either, and was considered too similar to Ruby Tuesday itself. Meanwhile, Beall was strongly interested in entering the burgeoning Italian restaurant sector, and signed a letter of intent late in 1992 to acquire Uno Restaurants Corporation and its chain of 110 Italian restaurants. Early the following year, however, Uno pulled out of the deal after a disagreement over the purchase price. Left without this prize acquisition, Beall decided it was time to abandon Silver Spoon and create a new casual Italian restaurant, to be called Mozzarella's Cafe. In 1993, Silver Spoon units began to be converted to Mozzarellas, which featured a variety of pasta dishes and pizzas, as well as fresh seafood, steak, and grilled chicken selections. The check average $9.50 was higher than Ruby Tuesday's, but still under the $10 mark. The under $10 category was where Beall wished to position all of the Ruby Tuesday Group concepts. Beall continued to revamp the Ruby Tuesday Group later in 1993 and in the following 2 years. The group entered into a joint venture in mid-1993 with the Dallas-based 12-unit Tia's Tex-Mex, founded by Larry Levine, who needed financing to fund further expansion. As part of the joint venture agreement, the Ruby Tuesday Group was given a 5-year option to acquire Tia's, which it did in January 1995 for $9 million in common stock. Tia's restaurants were conceived to be reminiscent of a grand old Mexican restaurant, featured display kitchens and outdoor patios, and offered various Tex-Mex dishes with a $9 check average. The year 1993 also saw the debut of Sweet Peas, a Southern-style dinner house, in suburban Atlanta. Featuring such homestyle and comfort-type meals as country fried steak and chicken pot pie and a check average in the $7 range, Sweet Peas was positioned to compete with such stalwarts as Cracker Barrel and Shoney's. In 1994, having already grown to 4 units, the Sweet Peas name was changed to Snaps because the Ruby Tuesday Group could not secure legal rights to the name and because the Dallas-based Black Eyed Pea raised objections to the name, fearing customer confusion. In mid-1994, the Ruby Tuesday Group announced that it would phase out the L&N Seafood Grill concept, given that L&N could not conform to the Ruby Tuesday under $10 check average. Most of the L&Ns were subsequently converted to either Ruby Tuesdays or Mozzarella's Cafes, although several were simply closed. Approximately $20 million was set aside to implement the phase-out. In May 1995, Ruby Tuesday entered into a license agreement with Jardine Pacific to develop Ruby Tuesday restaurants in the Asia-Pacific region. The first Ruby Tuesday located outside the United States opened in Hong Kong in July 1995, with additional units planned for mainland China, Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia. Ruby Tuesday came full circle in 1996 when Morrison was split into 3 separate public companies: Ruby Tuesday Incorporated, the former Ruby Tuesday Group, Morrison Fresh Cooking Incorporated, comprised of Morrison's cafeterias and quick service restaurants, and Morrison Healthcare Incorporated, the healthcare food service business of Morrison. Of the spin-offs, Beall said, "Now that our businesses have matured, we no longer need a layer of administrative management between these self-supporting independent operations and the shareholders." Legally, Ruby Tuesday Incorporated was the successor company to Morrison Restaurants Incorporated. Beall retained his position as president and CEO of Ruby Tuesday, which remained based in Mobile. Ruby Tuesday's first year of its second period as an independent company was a rough one. Although revenues increased 20.3% to $620.1 million in fiscal 1996, the company posted a net loss of $2.9 million due in part to increased competition in its restaurant sector and in part to $25.9 million in asset impairment and restructuring charges that were posted during the third quarter. The firm bounced back the next year, however, reporting profits of $25 million on sales of $655.4 million. During 1997, the company established an international division to facilitate overseas growth, and it also began franchising. In terms of the latter, the strategy taken was to keep operating company-owned restaurants in core geographic areas while selling off or otherwise establishing units in non-core regions. For example, during the fiscal year ending in June 1998, 48 restaurants in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, and a few other markets were sold to franchisees. At the same time, Ruby Tuesday was opening about 40 new restaurants a year. In the summer of 1998, the company returned to its roots, moving its corporate headquarters to Maryville, Tennessee, about 15 miles south of Knoxville. The new corporate campus also included an on-site training facility. Revenue growth slowed in the final years of the decade because of the continuing sale of units to franchisees, but profits kept growing. For fiscal year 1999, revenues grew just 1.5%, reaching $722.3 million, but profits jumped 25.6% to $36.5 million. That year, the poorly performing Mozzarella's Cafe units were converted into a concept called American Cafe. Among the overseas markets being targeted for growth at this time were Chile, Honduras, Iceland, India, and Kuwait. Back home, the number of franchised Ruby Tuesdays neared the 100 restaurants. Ruby Tuesday began the 21st century with a retrenchment. In April 2000, the company announced plans to sell off the Tia's Tex-Mex 26-unit and American Cafe 42-unit chains in order to focus full attention on the flagship operation. In November 2000, Ruby Tuesday completed the sale of the restaurants to Specialty Restaurant Group, LLC, in a management-led buyout valued at about $59 million. In anticipation of the sale, the company took a $10.1 million charge, cutting into profits for the fiscal year ending in June 2000. Whereas profits grew only slightly, revenue increased 10%, reaching $797.5 million, despite the sale of another 42 Ruby Tuesday restaurants to franchisees. The early 2000s saw Americans increasingly seeking takeout food higher in quality than typical fast food fare. A few casual dining chains, including Outback Steakhouse Incorporated, pioneered in curbside pickup programs through which a customer could call in an order and then drive to the restaurant and park in one of several designated spaces. These spaces were monitored by restaurant staff, usually via video camera, who would then run the order out to the car. Ruby Tuesday joined this successful trend by launching what was eventually called Curbside to Go at selected locations in 2001. After finding that takeout revenues had doubled at these units, the company began expanding the program. By late 2003, all the chain's non-mall locations were offering Curbside to Go. Although Ruby Tuesday saw some softening of sales, particularly at its mall locations, in the immediate aftermath of September 11, 2001, when consumers pulled back on their spending, the overall trend was positive. The company continued to open 45 to 50 company-owned units per year in the eastern United States, while opening about 24 franchise units each year west of the Mississippi. By early 2004, there were at least 700 Ruby Tuesdays across the country, more than 200 of which were franchise outlets. For the fiscal year ending in May 2004, the company's revenues surpassed the $1 billion mark for the first time. Profits were a record $110 million. At this time, Ruby Tuesday was in the midst of launching several initiatives aimed at nutrition and diet-conscious Americans. In late 2003, its restaurants began frying foods in canola oil, which is free of the trans fats that had been linked to heart disease. At the same time, a new menu was introduced featuring several low-carb items aimed at dieters watching their intake of carbohydrates. Then in April 2004, in an unprecedented move, the restaurants began using menus that included nutritional information for every item, listing calories, total fat, net carbs, and fiber. The company backtracked just 4 months later, however, and removed the listings from the menus, citing the prohibitive cost of printing new menus every time there were changes. Anytime a menu item was altered in any way, such as a portion size change or the amount of a particular ingredient, a menu reprint was necessitated. As a replacement, Ruby Tuesday began printing the data on separate tabletop cards, the updating of which was expected to be quicker and less costly. The timing of these initiatives was perhaps unfortunate. Simultaneously, Ruby Tuesday also cut its portion sizes on a number of its dishes, which alienated many customers, and it also began a marketing transition from a coupon-based campaign to the chain's first television advertising effort. The elimination of the coupons and the negative customer response to the portion cuts were factors in a 5% decline in sales during the second half of the 2004 calendar year. With a consumer backlash against leaner menus apparently building, Ruby Tuesday early in 2005 at least partially reversed course and rolled out heavier fare, including thick-cut onion rings and half-pound burgers. The menu nevertheless still offered more than 30 low-carb, low-fat, and low-calorie choices, and Ruby Tuesday remained the only U.S. casual dining chain with a salad bar. Chairman and CEO Beall was hoping that aggressive television advertising could turn the tide and make this downturn short-lived. Ruby Tuesday Incorporated became the legal successor to Morrison Restaurants Incorporated and was incorporated in Mobile, Alabama. At the time of the distribution, Ruby Tuesday Incorporated operated many other restaurant brands in addition to their flagship Ruby Tuesday brand, including L&N Seafood Grill, Mozzarella's Cafe, Silver Spoon Cafe, and Tia's Tex-Mex. In November 2000, Ruby Tuesday Incorporated completed the sale of all restaurant brands except Ruby Tuesday to Specialty Restaurant Group, LLC. This divestiture allowed Ruby Tuesday to concentrate exclusively on the growth and development of its namesake brand. On April 12, 2007, Ruby Tuesday Incorporated changed its NYSE ticker symbol from RE to RT. In 2007, the company began a series of significant changes to its brand identity. The changes were made to move the brand's customer perception out of the bar and grill segment of the casual dining industry, and were showcased in the opening of their Times Square location the same year. As part of the changes, Pentagram Design Studios were hired to help construct a new public visual identity. The design team created a new logo set in Clarendon, altered the standard color scheme, and created all new packaging to promote the renamed Ruby 2A Go carryout service. Ruby Tuesday also began remodeling its entire suite of restaurants via the removal of their novelty wall artifacts, faux Tiffany lamps, and dated furnishings. The update went on to bring a new menu with higher quality food and beverages, revamped service techniques, high-definition televisions, and a free guest-accessible Wi-Fi network. In August 2007, Ruby Tuesday Incorporated ventured back into other concepts with their newly acquired Asian dining restaurant, Wok Hei. The company proceeded to convert the concept from self-service to full-service dining. In October 2008, a second location was opened in a former Ruby Tuesday restaurant building. The company's 2011 annual report noted an additional franchised Wok Hei restaurant in Trinidad, bringing the emerging chain to 3 operating restaurants. In 2008, Ruby Tuesday marketed an advertising campaign to show how radical their recent changes were. On August 5, over live streaming internet video, a demolition crew was supposed to implode the final old Ruby Tuesday to cap off the brand's commitment of change in front of a small crowd in Mount Holly, Ohio. However, to the crowd's shock, the restaurant next door was demolished. The remodel and its accompanying changes came at an opportune time for the chain. A global financial crisis was underway, and the casual dining segment of the industry was financially suffering. To address these issues, the company debuted made-from-scratch garlic cheese biscuits, a Sunday brunch program, and a steak and lobster deal night. Despite all of this, financial analysts have been highly critical of the company's actions regarding the ever-changing shift in strategies. Following the events, the senior VP of marketing for Ruby Tuesday posted a written apology on the company's website and videotaped a formal apology that was broadcast on television. As it turned out, the idea was merely an elaborate marketing ploy to raise attention to the newly remodeled restaurants. The implosion was actually done on a miniature set staffed by a Hollywood special effects crew, and the live event had been pre-recorded in Harriman, Tennessee. The two films were then edited together to make it look like an accident. In September 2010, Ruby Tuesday Incorporated continued its venture into other concepts with an agreement to license the Lime Fresh Mexican Grill brand. Earlier the same year, Ruby Tuesday also acquired the development rights to Truffles Grill and introduced their homegrown marlin and raised seafood and sunsets concept. As of 2011, the company was researching conversion of poorly performing Ruby Tuesday restaurants into some of these concepts. An excerpt from the 2011 annual report. As of May 31, 2011, we owned and operated 1 Marlin and Ray's, 1 Truffles, and 2 Wok Hei restaurants. We are currently evaluating the conversion of certain lower-performing Ruby Tuesday concept restaurants to these concepts. We currently anticipate converting approximately 6 to 8 company-owned Ruby Tuesday concept restaurants to the Marlin and Ray's, Truffles, or Wok Hei concepts in fiscal 2012. Additionally, we anticipate opening 1 to 2 new restaurants and approximately 7 to 9 smaller, inline line restaurants in the fiscal year 2012. In 2012, yet another advertising campaign was announced to analysts to boost guest perception. It included a reintroduction of television advertising and a continued shift to convert underperforming stores. The company has also experimented with the conversion with the Alabama-based Jim and Nick's barbecue chain. However, a year after remodeling a Ruby Tuesday restaurant into the company's first Jim and Nick's, company spokeswoman Meredith Hammond indicated they would no longer explore the concept. On April 4, 2012, Ruby Tuesday Incorporated announced that it had purchased fast casual chain Lime Fresh Mexican Grill for $24 million cash. The announcement by Sandy Beall added, John Kunkel, Lime's founder, will be joining our board of directors following completion of the acquisition. In 2013, after posting a second quarter loss of $15.1 million, or 24 cents a share, Ruby Tuesday closed 13 Marlin and Ray's restaurants and 1 Wok Hay location, exiting from both concepts. It also sought a buyer for its 2 licensed Truffles Grill restaurants and closed 2 company-developed Lime Fresh restaurants. In 2014, returning to the more family-friendly casual restaurant chain, Ruby Tuesday changed the employees' uniform to more colorful attire of blue jeans and shirts in a variety of colors, changing the menus to a chalkboard theme, adding more current top 100 hit songs to the internal music system and updating their logo to a more modern font style. Continuing the trend in 2015, the chain updated their dated children's menu with the addition of cheese pizza and corn dogs, more colorful plastic beverage cups, and colorful twisty straws. To promote the more family-friendly feel, the chain introduced a Kids Eat Free night on their flagship day, Tuesday. At all company-owned restaurants, a child's meal is free with the purchase of an adult entree. The Tennessee-based restaurant operator said it would close about 95 underperforming locations next month. Ruby Tuesday counted 724 restaurants in its system as of the end of May, with most of them owned by the company. The closures come as Ruby Tuesday said sales dropped in its latest quarter, which ended in May, reversing improvement reported in recent periods. Sales at locations open at least a year fell 3.7%, worse than the 1.7% decline in the year-ago quarter and down from a 3.1% bounce in the previous 3 months. Traffic dropped 4.6%, the company said. Ruby Tuesday announced plans that it would be taken private through a purchase by NRD Capital Management, a private equity firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. The $146 million deal was finalized on December 21, 2017. There are a total of 227 Ruby Tuesday locations in United States as of April 26, 2023. The city with the greatest number of Ruby Tuesday locations in the United States is Jacksonville with 3 locations, which is 2% of all Ruby Tuesday locations in United States.
At Ruby Tuesday, the best starts here. From our jumbo lump crab cake, almost all jumbo lump meat, nearly no cake, to our signature triple prime burger, 3 cuts of prime steak, ground fresh. Our best, your pleasure. Ruby Tuesday.
If you have any fond memories, please indicate it at the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and like.